Hello everyone, welcome to our talk show. Today our topic is intercultural competence in the ESL classroom. This is an important subject because classrooms today are for students from different backgrounds and teachers must know how to guide them. To help us discuss this, we have three panelists with us. May you introduce yourself?
Alright, good morning everyone. My name is Lian Dioshen and I'm a teacher from a primary school and I work as a teacher for 5 years.
Thank you for Lian for the introduction just now. Now, my name is Miki and I'm the second panelist in this discussion. I'm a master's student which still pursuing my studies in UM right now.
Hello everyone, my name is Ricardo and I am a cultural exchange program coordinator for several programs recently.
Alright, thank you our panelists. So, panelist 1, for the first question is, what is the definition of intercultural competence? And the second question is, how can intercultural competence be developed in an ESL classroom?
Okay, thank you for the question. First, as an ESL teacher, I see intercultural competence as the ability to communicate effectively and respectfully with people from different cultural backgrounds, which means that it's not just about knowing facts about other cultures, it's also about understanding your own cultural assumptions and adapting your behavior. So interactions are positive and meaningful. And for second question, which you mentioned how to develop in an ESL classroom, in my point of view, I have several solutions. First, I might organize a cultural show and tell. For example, students may bring traditional food, clothing, items, and etc. And second, I will use role-play exercises, such as simulating a conversation in a foreign country. So they will practicing English in a new context.
Alright, thank you. Now, panelist 2, your question is, what does it mean to have an awareness of yourself and others? And also, why is this important for you as a teacher in an ESL classroom?
So, from my point of view, I think having self-awareness means that recognizing our own cultural values, beliefs, and even biases, while awareness of others means respecting and understanding perspectives that may be different from our own. This awareness is very important for teachers in an ESL classroom because teachers serve as role models in the classroom. By demonstrating cultural sensitivity, teachers can create a safe and inclusive learning environment where every student feels respected and supported in their learning journey. For the next question, why is it so important for you as a teacher in an ESL classroom? So, for information, cultural knowledge plays an important role in developing intercultural competence. In the ESL classroom, this knowledge can be developed through the use of literature, songs, proverbs, case studies, and interactive activities such as cultural days or pen pal programs. These approaches are not only can make the learning process become more engaging and interactive, but also can help the students to appreciate their cultural diversity between each other, since like all of them might come from different backgrounds and different races. And it's not sufficient to focus only on the local culture. The foreign culture should also be introduced to the students. So, as we said just now, the local culture strengthens the students' sense of identity, while the exposure to foreign cultures broadens their perspective and prepares them to become global citizens who are capable of communicating across cultures in today's 21st century world.
Alright, thank you, panelist 2. Oh, now, panelist 3, your questions are, how does one communicate across cultures and what could be the important factors that contribute to the communication being effective?
Alright, thank you for the question. So to answer the first question, how one communicate across cultures. So in my role as a cultural exchange program coordinator, I work with students and educators from many different countries. And I've learned that communicating across cultures require openness, patience, and respect. For example, when organizing a student exchange between Malaysia and Japan, I noticed that Japanese students tended to be more reserved, while Malaysian students were naturally more expressive. To bridge this gap, I encourage both groups to discuss cultural expectations openly before the program began. We talked about greetings, gestures, and even dining etiquette, which help avoid misunderstandings later. I also remind participants that it's okay to ask questions when something feels unfamiliar. Curiosity often leads to better understanding, and cross-cultural communication is not just about speaking a common language. It's about learning to adapt to different values and perspectives so that we can connect meaningfully. For the next question, what could be the important factors that contribute to a communication being effective? So, speaking from my experience, the three most important factors are cultural awareness, empathy, and adaptability. For instance, during a recent exchange program, I noticed that students from Europe often address teachers by their first name, while students from Asia were used to be more formal. Instead of correcting anyone, I explained these differences and encouraged everyone to adapt depending on who they were speaking with. That small conversation made interactions much smoother. Another example is when participants use slangs or idioms that others don't understand. In those situations, I guide them to simplify their sentences so everyone can follow the discussion. When we are aware of differences, show empathy, and stay flexible in our approach, communication becomes clearer, more respectful, and much more effective. That's all from me.
Alright, thank you. So thank you for all of your amazing answers and opinions. But now let's continue with more questions. So Vietnamese one, your next questions are: how do you acquire cultural knowledge of you and others? And why is it important for students to acquire cultural knowledge, especially of others?
Alright, so first questions. I will acquire cultural knowledge in a few ways that are very practical in the classroom. First, through self-reflection. I ask myself about my own cultural habits, values, and assumptions. Then, I learn about others by observing and interacting with students from different backgrounds. For example, I might ask students to share how they celebrate festivals or a typical school day in their country. I also use resources like videos, books, and interviews from YouTube to let them know more cultures. So they can also see real-life examples and compare them with their own experiences. So this way, both I and my students will get a deeper understanding of different cultures while becoming more aware of our own. Then the next question. Okay, I think it's important for students to acquire cultural knowledge because it helps students to communicate without misunderstanding. For instance, a student may learn that in some cultures, saying no directly is considered rude, so they learn to phrase disagreement politely. And it is also very important because it helps them to work in groups, make friends from different backgrounds, and also helps to prepare them for real life situations, such as they might study abroad in future.
Alright, thank you on this one. Now, Vietnamese 2, your questions are: how can this cultural knowledge be embedded in an ESL classroom? And is it sufficient to only introduce local culture, or should foreign cultures be taught too?
So, in my opinion, the cultural knowledge can be embedded in an ESL classroom many creative ways. For instance, the teachers can use different literature, folktales, songs, and proverbs from different cultures, such as the Malay and Chinese culture, to help the students see how the language reflects values and tradition from the people who are coming from different backgrounds. For instance, the Mooncake Festival is coming from a folktale from the Chinese. So other than that, real-life case studies, videos, and virtual tours can also make the lessons become more meaningful and interactive between the teachers and the students. Besides that, fun activities like a culture day, where students present food, clothing, or custom, and international pen pal projects, will allow the students to experience cultural diversity directly. These approaches are not only can make the lessons become more engaging and show the students that language is not only about grammar and vocabulary, but also about connecting with people and their cultures. So the next question, I think it's important to balance about the local and foreign cultures in the ESL classroom in Indonesia. The local culture should be taught because it gives students sense of identity and pride in their heritage. At the same time, foreign cultures can broaden the perspective and representatives for life in a globalized world. Learning about other cultures can help the student avoid stereotypes and equips them to communicate confidently with people from different backgrounds. Therefore, both local and foreign cultures are necessary to ensure that the students not only master English, but also develop intercultural awareness and openness as future global citizens.
Finally, ministry, your questions are: should unity and national integration be promoted or integrated in an ESL classroom? Why and how can they be promoted in the classroom? Provide examples of strategies or tools that can be used.
Alright, thank you for the question. So for the first question, should unity and national integration be promoted or integrated in an ESL classroom? In my opinion, absolutely. In fact, cultural exchange programs often improve just how important unity and integration are in language learning. I've seen students from different ethnic groups and regions come together in ESL activities, and at first, they sometimes stick to their own circles. But when we intentionally create opportunities for interaction, something amazing happens. They begin sharing their traditions, learning from one another, and developing a sense of belonging. For example, during one of our exchange workshops, Malaysian students, international participants, and local ESL learners collaborated to prepare a short cultural showcase. By the end, students were no longer thinking in terms of my culture or your culture. They were celebrating our collective identity. Promoting unity in ESL classrooms not only helps students build stronger relationships, but also creates a safe, inclusive space where everyone feels comfortable practicing the language. And for the second language, how can they be promoted in the classroom? And some examples or strategies or tools that they can be used. So there are many practical ways to promote unity and integration, especially in ESL classrooms. One approach that I often use in exchange programs is called collaborative learning. For example, I once organized a global storytelling project where students from different countries were paired up to create and present a single story together. This encouraged them to combine their cultural perspective while practicing English. Another effective activity is hosting a culture day in the classroom where each students introduce their festivals, food or traditions, and classmates can ask questions. We also use digital tools like Flipgrid or Padlet to make the process more interactive. Students record short videos introducing their background, and everyone gets to respond and learn from each other. These strategies don't just improve English proficiency, they also foster empathy, appreciation, and respect for diversity, which are essential in today's interconnected world. And that is all my answer.
Alright, thank you to all our panelists for their thoughtful answers. For today's discussion, we learned that intercultural competence is all about awareness, respect, and effective communication. Teachers need to guide students to understand both themselves and others so that the classroom becomes a safe and inclusive space for learning. We also saw that intercultural competence goes beyond language skills. It involves learning about local and foreign countries, appreciating diversity, and practicing respectful communication. And finally, we discussed how unity and national integration can be promoted in the classroom through some group projects and discussions. When students respect one another and work together, they develop harmony and mutual understanding. This is the true value of intercultural competence. Well, that brings us to the end of our talk show. Thank you for listening, and we hope today's session inspires you to practice these values in your own classrooms. Thank you.
Welcome.